Hello. Hi, everybody. I feel like I should have some kind of intro music or something, and I should probably get on that one day. Uh, I'm just gonna make sure that we're actually started, make sure that everything is coming in, give everybody a second to chill out, and yeah, it looks like we're here. Good, wonderful, fantastic. Bonus, I love it when streams actually start not muted, and you know how it is. Anyway, welcome back. It's been a while since we did a dumb Fekk Friday. Today we are going to be talking about Kevin Sorbo. I'll be straight up. I really like Kevin Sorbo. I grew up watching Andromeda. I loved it. His character is kind of pretentious, but I gotta hold that against him. That's not his fault. I'm all about that. All about it. I am all about it. So, I got some notes. Not a whole ton of notes. I was hoping that I would not... Oh, I have a question for all of you before we get started. This or this? I feel like it's too dark. I don't like it. I feel like it got too dark outside in the interim. We'll go with the bright light for now. Hopefully we don't upset any Mogwai in the chat. 10 points for that reference. I really got to set up a point position. I wanted to thank whoever sent me this hat, and I wanted to thank whoever sent me this cool jacket. I really like it. It's super nice, but they didn't have a card with it, so I don't know who sent it to me. But thank you to whoever did. Links in the description down below. If you want to send something to Puck, links in the description down below. There's also a new mug out. It is called Don't Be Dumbass. That is in the shop. Link, again, is down below. Sadly, we're going to actually have to watch this whole minute, or this whole video. Luckily, it's only 10 minutes long. I did take, the notes that I took, I did try to, like, cut out as much nonsense as I could. So I might try and skip as much as I can, but I feel like you might just want to hear the whole thing. So let's get started, shall we? Boop, there he is. Aw, little guy. Still got the same hair. Lucky? Not everybody is lucky to have that same hair all the way through their life, so props to him. All right. Hey, here we go.
Makes me really sad that we've gotten so angry and so divided. But why can't we have a civil talk about our disagreements? And you can't do that today, especially in Hollywood. My name is Kevin Sorbo, and this is my story. So you might know me from Hercules, The Legendary Journeys. I got to brag a little bit. That was the most watched show in the world, 7 years. So where it began for me, I grew up in a little town called Mound, Minnesota. And 11 years old, we took a field trip into the Guthrie Theater, a very famous theater in Minneapolis. And so we went to see Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice. Now, number one, I was 11, right? Shakespeare, I don't know what the heck they were saying on stage, but I was mesmerized by the actors. I was mesmerized by people being mesmerized. I was looking around on the way home. My mom said, "What do you think?" And I said, "You know something, Mom? I'm gonna be an actor." And I got that nice little pat on the leg, and my mom said, "That's nice, dear." And it wasn't until I got to college. And I had a double major in marketing and advertising, but I had a minor in drama because I knew what I really wanted to do. I got
So I'll pause right there just for a minute. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to show the intro, even though it's not quite that important to what I wanted to talk about. But it's good to sort of recognize people as people, right? Kevin Sorbo is a person. He's a human being. He had a childhood. He was a kid. He experienced life as a child. He's dedicated to the thing that he wants to do and what he thinks matters to him in his life, which is acting. Good for him. But I really yes, the triple shot angle is a bit much. That's not him. He's not the producer. But a lot of the times when we're having, like he said at the beginning, you can't have a conversation with people a lot of the time, particularly on social media. And I think a lot of the time that he's not wrong. And there's a degree there of separation where we forget that the person you're talking to is another human being, or the person you're talking about is another human being, or the group of people that you're dealing with are a group of human beings. And so there's a social dynamic that goes on, and that social dynamic is ignored, or there's too many degrees of disassociation, right? Where you're like, okay, well, yeah, but, or I'm part of this group, but, or I'm this, but. So let's keep going. We'll see where this starts to sort of fall apart and degenerate a bit.
Say there were some sidetracks in my life before I made the big move to Los Angeles, and it's always about a girl, right? So I met a girl my last year of college, and she was a big-time model, and she had already been traveling the world, and she was only 19, I was 22. She goes, come and spend one summer in Italy with me. Come on, we'll go to Milan. I said, okay. So I go to Milan. She had an agent, I didn't. I was just like, I'm gonna spend 3 months, have a fun time in summer. I'm walking on the street, who's walking at me but with his bodyguards was Johnny Versace. And he sees me and he goes, who are you, where are you from? And I said, well, I'm from Minnesota. You were a model? I said, not really, I'm an actor. She goes, no, you must be in my shows, I love you, you're tall, you're big. And that got me going, and as I spent 8 months modeling.
And this is something that I want to address. He got a big-time modeling gig because at 22, he wandered down the street and just found this guy. This guy just found him? I don't know how much of this story is, like, missing pieces of it, or if this is legitimately just the only story. That's not a thing that happens, especially not nowadays, which is, again, why I wanted to touch on this and why I wanted to show this a little bit, is I really, really, really wanted to show you guys, like, where Kevin Sorbo is coming from and the mindset that where and when he grew up, and what opportunities he has and has not had, and what worked for him and what doesn't, and how that kind of plays into a little bit of his politics, which we will get into as we go. So let's keep her rolling.
In Milan, I went to Paris then for 6 months, and I went to Munich for a year and a half, then I went to Zurich for 3 months, and London 3 months. So I spent 3.5 years in Europe, what was supposed to be 3 months. You know, it was interesting to see people's view of America, because everywhere I went, there was an interest in America. There was.
All right. This, to me, is something that is very akin to that sort of nationalist viewpoint that America tends to put forward. They see people being interested in America as a positive thing, when that's not necessarily the case. I'm not American. For most of you who are here, you know that. I'm from Canada. I'm not American. I have interest in America. American politics is interesting because American politics affects my politics very, very closely, and it's not a comfortable place to be. I would like it more if America's politics did not affect Canadian politics in the way that it does, or even if it just, like, was a little bit less oppressive. Now, a lot of people around the world view America and think about America and are concerned about America because America keeps involving themselves in their shit. I appreciate that you think you know what's best, and I appreciate that you want to try and help. Maybe wait until somebody asks for your opinion, or asks for your input, or asks for you to engage, and not just show up there. But we'll get a little further, so let's keep rolling.
I want to go there. What's it like? You know, because they get all our movies, they got all our television shows. I mean, I'm living in all those countries over there, and it's 90% of it is American stuff. I remember, I'm gonna jump forward here to when I got Hercules, because I shot that in New Zealand. But this was common in places even in Europe, but this cracks me up the most. The first year of filming Hercules, no one obviously knew about the series at that time. And I would go and work out at this gym that I joined there, and this one guy walks up to me and goes, "Oh, you're that Yank. You're that Yank shooting Hercules, eh?" And I went, well, yeah, I'm an actor. I'm filming the television series Hercules. He goes, America, I've been to America, hated it. And I looked at him, and I don't know why I thought of this, but I'm kind of a smartass to begin with. And I said, well, then don't go back. We have enough assholes there already. And I walked away from him. And I kept thinking of dumb.
That's funny. That's funny. I like that joke. He's just like, I didn't like America. I hated it. He's like, good, don't come back. We've got enough assholes. Good, yeah, that's funny. I was breezing through Kevin Sorbo's Twitter today before doing this. The dude's got some chops for, like, funny tweets. Like, he's really not all bad, but his takes are just not complete, if that makes sense. We'll get into that. Let's keep going.
Bell's gonna be in the back of the head or something. But you would run into people like that no matter what country you go to. For the most part, people liked America. I think to travel the way I did was huge.
In the 80s and the early 90s, just to be clear.
Huge to make me grow up. It matured me, there's no question about it. Moving to LA, I wasn't as intimidated as I know I would have been at the age of 22. I know that was huge for me to do that. I came out with a very positive attitude that I'm gonna make it. And I knew it wasn't easy. I mean, they call it the city of angels, right? It's really a city of broken dreams. A buddy guy gave me great advice. He said, Sorbs, remember, it's called show business, not show. Treat it like a business, and that's what I did. I treated it like a business. I was relentless with my agents. If I found out about an audition for something, I'd go to my agent, call him up. Kevin, I got 100 clients. I said, I don't give a crap about your clients. Do you think they care about me? My mantra was get me in the door. Let me have the chance to be rejected. Just get me in the door. I was hungry for it, and I wanted to make sure I kept working. And since those years, I've shot over 60 movies, and I've been very fortunate to have a nice long career, and I hope it continues.
Okay, so right here he talks about how he's had a long career and he wants his career to continue, and you treat your acting and your show business as a business. We find out a little bit later on in this clip that no, he doesn't anymore. He sort of goes down this route of what seems like persecution and martyrdom almost when he starts talking about because of Hollywood and he brings up this they are going to cancel me, they are going to do this, they won't let me do that because I decided to put my opinion and my principles on that opinion ahead of my career. So I find it odd here that he says, I hope that my career continues, but I am not willing to play nice. It's one of those things where you can't necessarily have your cake and eat it too. Let's hear what he actually has to say, though.
The difference today, I think, is back then to compare to now. I think you've got to play even more of a game now. You got to be ready to, I think, bite your lip more than ever in the climate that's going on in America today, the climate that's going on in the world, because you've got this whole woke thing and this cancel culture where people come after you and it can tear you down for something you said 30 years ago, which is insane to me. And these are the same people apparently are perfect people that never, you know, what does it say in the Bible? You know, ye without sin cast the first stone.
You don't have to be perfect to have an issue with someone's behavior or an issue with someone's politics. It's totally reasonable to say, hey, listen, I don't like that. Does that make me think that I'm perfect? No, of course. You're allowed to be critical of people's behaviors and their policies. That's the whole point of politics. That's what social structures are about. You need to be able to communicate with each other on ideas and not ideas. So it's a strange back and forth that he's creating between what he wants or what he says he wants versus the way he's acting versus his concern about backlash, right? He's concerned about his opinion and his politics are preventing him from having a career when he doesn't think that that should be the case and people should be able to have conversations. And he's like, well, today we can't do that. Most of you know that Kevin Sorbo was pro-insurrection, and so it's a dichotomy of what's it called? I wrote it down. The paradox of tolerance, which is you can only, if you are tolerant of everything, then you have to be tolerant of intolerance, which then the only thing you end up with at the end of the day is intolerance. So I'm gonna hit play. There's a lot to talk about.
But I didn't notice it until I got up to Canada, where I filmed my second series, Andromeda. And I started noticing it more on the set there when two of the actors on the show found out I was conservative, and they said, "You're Republican, you're against education." And I went, "I'm against education?"
I mean, that sounds like a really vague way to put it, but kind of. Like the opinion of the political climate in Canada is very different than the political climate in America. Now, keeping in mind that this would have been somewhere between 1990, late 1990s, because the show started airing in 2000, so he would have had to have been in Canada before, like, to do the filming ahead of time. So late 1990s. America's politics are so right-leaning that America doesn't really have a left anymore, whereas Canada has a distinct right and left, but America's right is like an extreme right. I mean, like the liberals in America are more right than our conservatives, kind of, in some degrees. But this point about education is I would assume, with as vague as this story is, they were talking about sex education, because conservatives are against sex education. So yes, you're against education, not teaching people on a whole, but that's a standard platform, right? So let's keep going. Oh, although, to be fair, before I'll just point out real quick, there's a really big difference between the politics of an individual, the politics of the party that individual follows, and then the politics of the country itself. These are three different categories. So, local politics and such.
I said, "What?" I said, that blew my mind. But then when I started doing more and more movies, that's when I started hearing people saying stuff on the set, and I would challenge people. I'm like, "Well, what do you mean by that?" I mean, they love their labels. You're a homophobe, you're a racist, you're an anti-Semite. And I go, "Okay, tell me how I am. Where does that come from?"
And this is graying the line. This is muddying the waters. If you're part of a political party and you support that political party, and that political party is pushing racist policies or homophobic agendas, and you're staunchly supporting that party, even if you yourself haven't directly been homophobic or haven't directly said a racial slur at somebody, it doesn't mean you're not supporting racist structures, right? So it's a framing of, well, what have I personally done? Well, you're voting for laws that are racist. But we'll come back to this right at the very, very end. It's like, again, it's a little bit more complicated than that. This is what I mean when I said it's incomplete. Yes, this is a section to be considered, and I'm happy that if you've never said a racial slur to somebody, or you've never been directly racist to somebody, good, keep that up, don't do that. But also, maybe it's possible that you might, like, I don't mean Kevin Sorbo in particular, but in general, it's certainly possible that somebody has a degree of separation between party and personal politics. And sometimes, especially with the way America works with a two-party system and very hard party lines, people will argue for their party even if their party goes against their individual personal politics, right?
On the set of so many movies and TV shows in 30+ years, and I've worked with so many people that are gay, lesbian, whatever. There's not one that would say I was a horrible person to work with. There's not one. But they love their labels, and it's so...
That's not true. So this video came out in April of 2021. Lucy Lawless has come out to slap him around on Twitter on at least one occasion, and she thinks that he was awful to work with. So I don't, maybe he didn't know that at the time, but this is a matter of self-reflection. And again, you can be perfectly amicable as an employee, or completely amicable as an individual in a one-on-one setting, or completely amicable as a co-worker, right? But that has nothing to say about your personal politics. And that has nothing to say about like your effect over the whole. We'll get to that when we start looking at his Twitter a little bit.
So easy to throw labels at people. And like I said, now we live in a culture where it's you're guilty until proven innocent, when it used to be the other way around. I was at a charity golf event out in Palm Springs, and I said something, and one of the guys pulls me aside. He says, "Are you conservative?" So why are we talking like we're doing a drug deal over here in the corner? You know, because he pulled me in the corner of the clubhouse we were sitting in. It's crazy how the damage they can do to your career and how they can destroy people's lives right now. In 2010, there were a couple of incidents that I just said, okay, I've had enough of this. And I remember going back to my wife and saying, I've had enough of the hypocrisy where nobody's pointing it out. And I started getting more vocal. Of course, we had all these, social media was starting to grow in its infancy.
So he's talking about around 2010. And this is where you see like the switch of like, where I talked about persecution and martyrdom. Your sacrifice, you believe that if you speak out, you're sacrificing your career, and you're choosing to speak out anyway, right?
We started to take off, and I started saying stuff. My wife said, "You better look out, they're gonna come after you." And I said, all I said was 2 + 2 is 4. I spoke the truth, that's just truth. But she was right. And I got to a point with my agent, who was a big-time agent, I was with a long time, and my manager just said,
Leo Vegas is burning hot, and so are the 9 masks of fire.
Cool, we got an ad. So this is something that I think is a little bit interesting, only because there's a, this is what I mean. When you start, if you're going to treat it like a business, treat it like a business and keep your politics out of it, right? If you want to have your politics over your business, that's fine, but that's the choice that you're making, right? You can't, if you, there's a difference between backlash and like, oh, they are out to get you, right? They are doing this to you. There's a really big difference between what's happened with the choices and decisions that Kevin Sorbo has made versus, for example, like what happened to Brendan Fraser. Brendan Fraser is somebody who had something happen to him that was not his choice. And in trying to speak out about it, he found that he couldn't. And that led him to be ostracized from Hollywood and the acting community on a whole. Kevin Sorbo decided to kind of just be a dick to people and was like, nobody wants to work with me. The thing is that being conservative in America has a lot of luggage that you're dragging along with you. There's a lot of luggage there that when you're like, yeah, I'm a proud conservative, yay Trump and insurrections, that's not as simple as, oh, but I'm personally a nice guy. What? It's almost like a weird self-reflection thing of like, hey, I view myself in this way and I try to be nice to everybody that I interact with on a one-on-one basis, but also gay people shouldn't get married, shouldn't be allowed to. It's like, why can't we just have a conversation about this? What? I would actually love to have, if Kevin Sorbo is actually as nice as he is in this interview, which I'm not entirely sure is the case, because there's a really big difference between like your presentation face and who you are, because there's a difference between an actor and a performance and the person. I would love to have this kind of a conversation with him. That'd be fantastic. I have a new show coming up. You should totally swing by. Maybe we can get him. That'd be really cool. I'll keep going.
Well, because you're conservative and you're a Christian and I was like, we can't represent you anymore. I said, why? Well, because you're conservative and you're a Christian and I was like, what?
Okay, that part I don't believe. I think that's what he heard. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt that that's what he heard. I don't think that's what the agency said, because they wouldn't be allowed to do that. You can't that you can't. There are rules against like firing people and picking and choosing who you're deciding to represent based on their religion. You're and their politics. You're not allowed to do that. What I bet they was a little bit more likely to have been said was, you won't shut up about politics, and we can't help you with that. So, like, if you're not gonna play by the rules, we can't play with you. And that's something that has to do with PR. Remember when he's talking about how you have to treat it like a business? So why was he surprised when he got this kind of a phone call? He was already prepared, knowing ahead of time. He believed ahead of time that they were going to come after him and he wouldn't be able to work in the industry anymore. And then he was surprised when his agent was like, we can't represent you anymore for the exact reasons that you already believed that you were going to get segregated from anyway. Again, there's a big difference between what I think he heard versus what I think was actually said. If you're not going to follow the rules when it comes to PR, you will notice that a lot of people in Hollywood do not tweet about politics, especially as aggressively as Kevin Sorbo does. But we'll get to his Twitter in a little bit.
And I said, this is an industry that screams more than anybody else for tolerance. You have to be tolerant. You have to be, freedom of speech. And now
this is the part about the paradox of tolerance. We talked about it already.
That stuff is completely a one-way street. It's like, you say what we say, or you're out. You're out of the club. Andrew Breitbart said, politics is downstream of culture. Who runs the culture? Hollywood does. Mainstream media does. And you see what's coming out there right now. You see the movies that come out. There's so much hate, anger, divisiveness.
Media is about putting a mirror up to whatever society is currently doing. You can see that across any kind of media. Take any kind of media studies class, and you can look at, hell, you don't even take the class. Just go and look at like the general feel of films and the time period that they're in, and the 80s, and how the 80s felt, and what kind of music was there, what kind of art was there, what kind of acting, what kind of shows were on, and then look at like a decade ahead of time, and then look at a decade afterward, and a decade after that, and a decade after that. You'll see like a whole you can see what society's kind of mentality. Look at, if you really want to know what society was thinking at the time and what their concerns were and what they were afraid of, watch horror movies. Look at old horror movies and see what you can interpret from what the content of, and what's the monster in those movies. And you can see very easily how society moves and shifts and changes. This is like basic. This is just basic like social studies.
Walt Disney said back in the 50s, movies and television will influence the youth. And of course, look what it's doing right now. I mean, there's such an ignorance out there. There's such a, I don't think people are stupid. I don't think young kids are stupid. I think they're just misguided, they're misled. We got an education system that is, they're telling kids that this is bad and this is good. I never had that when I was in school. I never had that. If I had a math class, they taught math. It was biology, I taught biology. When I got to college, I never had any professors tell me or get angry at me if I had a different viewpoint than them. I
mean, I agree that professors shouldn't get angry at a student's viewpoint, but it sounds like Kevin Sorbo has gone through his life mostly unchallenged. And so now he's being challenged, and he has a problem with that. I could be wrong. This is just my interpretation. It's okay to be told you're wrong. There's also, like, if you have a professor saying, actually, that's not right, here's why, that's also not a professor yelling at you, telling you you're like, it also, like, the topics, man. The biology is a very different topic than social studies. History is a very different topic than mathematics, right? This is not a good this is an apple and oranges kind of comparison. We want to talk about like cancel culture and like whether or not how much of that is fair or how much of it is reasonable. Some of it is, some of it's not. There are gray lines along each thing. Backlash and not getting work because you are not able to keep up with what society is okay with, then maybe it's unfair, but society has said that they're not interested in what you have to say. Kind of just the way it works.
No recollection of any of that stuff going on, but it's changed drastically in the last 15 years. It's just, you know, it's accelerating on itself. And when I usually confront somebody and say, okay, let's talk about that issue, and all they can do is say, you're wrong, or science. And I go, okay, explain the science to me. It's science, and they walk away.
So something that's a little bit interesting about this, he's complaining that he was that people are responding to him by saying you're wrong, and when he asks why, they say you're wrong. But earlier, he talked about how, well, I just told the truth. I just said that 2 + 2 = 4. Okay, did you explain it? Were you open to the conversation? Because he also told the story of Canada, and in the story of Canada, when he was filming Andromeda, he talks about how he would challenge these people, but, like, did you? You were very defensive. So, you know, there's ways to approach the conversation, and there are ways that the video comes off as finger pointy. Not that I disagree with a lot of what he has to say. I don't think that professors should be imposing their views, particularly in like a political studies class, right? That's not appropriate. You shouldn't be doing that as a teacher, no matter what line of politics you're in. Right? Pretty straightforward. If you're if you're teaching a religious class, you shouldn't be biased towards whatever religion you view yourself as, or whatever you are, whatever you believe, because you're a teacher. But teachers are held to a different standard than an actor or somebody who does sports, right? I still think he brings up great points that are great to discuss, but I mean, this is a PragerU video, so they don't actually get into what his points are, just that they exist, which is fine. Video's not about that, so I'm not going to pick on that.
Because they don't have the answers. That's where they want to be, because that's where the news people told them they should be, or the industry of Hollywood told them they should be. There's a weird tipping point we're at right now.
That's really presumptuous and really dismissive and almost a little bit arrogant, but...
between reality and just fake information. And unfortunately, people are falling into the trap of going for the stuff that's more fake than real. Here's what's interesting. I
agree with that. Discernment is very important, and it's something that's practiced. It's not something that's innate. You need to learn how to discern what is fake news and what isn't fake news, and how can you tell, and how can you educate yourself to a degree that you can start to recognize the difference. I think that's fair.
I tell my liberal friends, I go, you go look. You bring up JFK. JFK was great. And I said, look at his 1960 inauguration speech. Is there any Democrat that talks that way today? And
my response would probably be, is there any conservative? If your answer is well, the other side sucks and your side also sucks, maybe just get a new side. This is what I mean by, like, maybe, according to this video, maybe Kevin Sorbo isn't as much as a conservative as he thinks he is, or maybe he's not that much of a conservative personally, but they're the ones that best align with some of his political desires, or the world he wants to live in. And so that's the one he gravitates towards, right? And it's just like, listen, you've got 2 piles of garbage. and you have to pick one, but you're like, there's 2 different kinds of mushrooms growing in that garbage, and you like those mushrooms, but not those mushrooms, you're probably gonna pick that pile of garbage. At least you're gonna get something out of it. But that's a party political problem. And like maybe if what Kevin Sorbo said at the beginning about wanting to be able to have conversations, 1, doing them in a productive manner is good. 2, and that applies to everybody. That applies to both sides. That applies to all of the sides if you're in a country that has more than 2. Having conversations is helpful, and being able to find a middle ground is great. And if that's what Kevin Sorbo wants, then it might be good to refocus the criticism to the political structure and how divisive the political structure is, and how problematic American news media is. And if he focuses the conversation there instead of finger pointing, he might be more productive and be able to have more productive conversations. I'm not telling him what to do, by the way. He's allowed to do whatever he wants. Whatever. What do I know?
You have to find a way, and I think the Liberals got to help lead in that way as well. And the right does as well. We got to find a way to get some sort of common ground. I still have to hope and believe that we're going to eventually reach across and find a way to shake hands and be sincere about it.
I'll be friends with you, Kevin Sorbo. Come talk to me. We'll hang out. It'll be cool. On my new show, which will be announced soon. Look out for that. Like and subscribe and stuff. The music kills me. The plug at the end is what gets me.
I hope you enjoyed my story, and I'll tell you what, let's keep PragerU going. You can make a tax-deductible donation right now to keep this.
People say I'm racist, and they say I'm homophobic, but then they can't show where. I'm going to give Kevin Sorbo the benefit of the doubt, and doing the plug was just part of, like, the shtick. Like, it was just part of him being on a video for them. And, like, I'm gonna assume that Kevin Sorbo doesn't spend a whole lot of time watching PragerU, but that's just giving him a little bit of, I'm giving him a little bit of credit there. I mean, a little bit of charity from my end of things. Twitter. This is where things start getting a little bit interesting. Digital Demonic Davros for 2 says, so just call him pretentious but not an a-hole. Maybe. We'll get to his Twitter. Let's take a look. Shall we? Oh, it's over here? Okay. I have to breathe for the Twitter, because the first tweet, which is his pinned tweet from December of 2020, is, raise your hand if you're more concerned about losing your constitutional rights than you are about COVID. I'm not saying anything. Biden is more confused than a chameleon in a candy store. I think that's funny. I like that. I'm no Biden fan. Biden, cancel student debt, shithead. Biden is more confused than a chameleon in a candy store. Kind of funny. Currently living the biggest I told you so moment our country has ever seen. I want to know what this is referencing. He tweeted it on March 22nd. Now, I don't know if Kevin Sorbo's Twitter is actually run by his son or not. When the insurrection incident happened, he said that his son was running his Twitter, but then there was no follow-up. So I have no idea if this is actually Kevin Sorbo, if it was actually Kevin Sorbo, if it's actually Kevin Sorbo's son, if Kevin Sorbo fired his son. I don't know, but bruh. If I had $1 for every time Biden said or did something stupid, I'd be able to buy gas. I'm a fan. I like that. That's funny. Same people who were in favor of locking up truckers are now in favor of giving Ukrainian citizens guns. Pick a side. No. No. No, 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 no. And I'll explain why. These are two very, very different issues. Issues about COVID and issues about gun laws and issues about a war. Yeah. Arming yourselves against invasion is also a different conversation than putting in gun regulations to help protect children in schools. Right? The gun laws in America have nothing to do with Ukraine. And it has nothing to do with the truckers. The only things that you could like associate with those two is like nationalism, but even then, nationalism in Ukraine is not the same brand of nationalism that's currently festering in America. But this is like, as you can kind of see in his video, there's an American pride there, which isn't wrong. That's not bad. You can be proud of your country if you want. That's something you can do. But I think it's important to know why. Why are you proud of your country? What have they done? Good things, bad things? What have they done for you as the citizen to be proud of? What has your country done for you? Ask not what you can do for your country, but what your country can do for you. I think I got that backwards, but maybe time is the thing. 4 years of F Trump, but you say let's go Biden and you're dividing the country. No, maybe? I mean, all of the both? Why not both? I'm okay with both. I feel like both. I'm not a centrist, by the way. But if we're looking for things that we can all agree on to have the conversation, fuck Trump and fuck Biden are both pretty fair. Remember when we treated the flu with tea soup and saltines instead of communism? Why don't I have jobs in Hollywood? They're coming, the evil they are coming after me. Bruh. Bruh? We're gonna have to get a virologist on here to talk about what the flu actually is, and the flu isn't actually just a bad cold. The flu is actually pretty awful. A lot of times people think they have the flu when they've only got really like a bad cold or they've got like an infection, whereas like the flu is like real bad, and then Kofefe is not the flu. Kofefe is far worse than the flu. But I mean, tell that to all the people on ventilators, dude. Like, this is not. This is. I thought you treated this like a business. This is what I mean by persecution. I'm being persecuted because I just told the truth. No, you didn't. This is not the truth. This is not. Why? No. I don't know why people don't want to work with me. Maybe because you bring too much luggage with you. Working with you brings a lot of negative PR because you're purposefully creating negative PR. Because you want to. I mean, if you want to, I ain't gonna stop you. Like, if you want to have negative PR, you go right ahead. But don't pretend that you're not doing it on purpose. Martyrdom. You know. Everything was Trump's fault when he was in office, but now nothing is Biden's fault. Okay. Yeah, I don't agree with that. I mean, like, I'm agreeing with his sentiment. Biden's responsible for Biden shit. Trump is responsible for Trump shit. Just remember that there's kind of like a gray area of in between of things that are happening in Trump's administration that were not Trump didn't initiate. Right? So like Obama initiated thing came to fruition during Trump's administration. Trump's administration did whatever Trump's administration and set up whatever Trump's administration did, and that's going to flow into Biden's administration. And so as long as you keep in mind that exists and is a thing, and acknowledge that where it is the case. Yeah, Biden's responsible for Biden shit. I agree with this. This is fine. Anyone have any new conspiracy theories? My old ones keep coming true. This is what I want to talk to Kevin Sorbo about. If I ever get a chance to talk to Kevin Sorbo, I want a list. I want a list of this guy's prophetic nature. Tell me your conspiracy theory and show me where it became true. I need a video on this. Please, Kevin Sorbo. Yes, please give this to me. Please. That'd be amazing. You know, maybe he's better than I thought. I haven't like followed every one of what he thought was a conspiracy. It's weird because he acknowledged that they were conspiracy theories, so which would mean that he was right for the wrong reasons, I guess. It's a weird acknowledge. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into that. I'm going to need everybody to stop driving for the next 2 weeks. It's going to flatten the raising gas prices. Don't be selfish. That's funny. Like, some of these things are funny. Like, he's got a funny bone. And like, maybe if you could have a conversation with him, you might be able to find common ground. You might be able to get what he wants, which is this common ground where we can take the ideals on one side, the ideals on the other side, and find something, a common ground that is realistic. Because you can have like the extremes left, you can have the extremist right, and sometimes the middle ground isn't actually centrism. What the middle ground is practicality. What is practical? What can we do so that both people, at least, what can we compromise on, right? It's also very different when you talk to somebody on a one-on-one basis, and what they're willing to give might be, or identifying somebody by their political party is usually not fair to the person. Usually when it comes to a political party, people are just picking as best as they can, right? Nobody's happy with every single thing that their party says or does. Of course they're not. Not everybody agrees with every single policy a party puts forward. You can't possibly be, not with the way the politics is currently set up, particularly in America, especially in America. America's like an extreme of that. So it's not fair to say like, oh, well, Kevin Sorbo's a conservative. Well, I just don't like him at all, ever. Like, that's kind of silly to identify people that way. People are far more complicated than that. And it sucks when you're in the limelight, when like people are looking at you with like a very pointed laser vision where they're like picking on every single thing you say and do. I guarantee that there's like a handful of people that takes a stupid joke about like, where is it? This one. If I had $1 for every time Biden said or did something stupid, I'd be able to buy gas. Like, that's funny. That's funny. I like that. That's great. But like, if you're too buried in politics, then you're like, well, what stupid thing has Biden done? Well, no, Biden does dumb things. Every politician does dumb things. It's part of politics, right? Like, come on. It's fine. Don't be too attached to your political party, because your political party isn't that attached to you. Put it that way. EMP for 10 said, I feel like his moaning about the way things are without being clear what his solutions are, or even what lane of perceived progress he's in. It's very kind of blurry. I agree with that. I think that's less of a Kevin Sorbo problem. Or at least I'm willing to give Kevin Sorbo the benefit of the doubt and say that maybe that's a problem with PragerU. He's having the conversation on PragerU, which already is going to be viewed as very divisive and very, like, closed wall-ish. Because there's a lot of things that Kevin Sorbo said that I actually, in that interview, that I agree with. I'm like, yeah, we should be able to find a middle ground. Yeah, it'd be great if we could have these kinds of conversations with, yes, people shouldn't judge other people just and treat them poorly. I don't know how much of those stories were actually accurate, but people shouldn't be treated poorly, especially in their workplaces, based on their politics, right? So I'm willing to give, if that sentiment from Kevin Sorbo is true, and that's what he believes, and that's what he wants, then I think we can agree that Kevin Sorbo might actually just be a decent guy with some shitty ideas that maybe if he was able to get in a conversation with somebody who could actually engage with him, which, you know, Twitter's not gonna, right? Like, and I don't mean any of us, by the way. I don't mean me. I don't mean like live chat. I don't mean the lurkers out there. I don't mean people on Twitter. I mean like somebody who's a friend with him in real life who can go out and have a beer, right? There's so much lost when it comes to internet conversations. There's so much that is not like it. You can't convincing people on a one-on-one basis over the internet especially during a show. When people have there's a pressure that's put on people like Kevin Sorbo to maintain and hold that. When he's talking about like, oh, they're going to come after me because I have this belief, they are also going to go after him if he admits a point during some kind of live discussion. So like that fear, that pressure, and especially when you're somebody like Kevin Sorbo who has such as large of a following as he does, when there are people who rely on him, and when there's already also like a persecution complex as a part of a lot of Christian dogma, not all of it, just to be clear, this is not everybody. There are some churches in some regions, and it's a little bit more prevalent in America, that have a persuasion towards persecution. And if you already have that in your head, then, and you're somebody who has more notoriety, and you're like the oddball in whatever field you're in, then you're going to feel that weight and that pressure of the other believers who are relying on you to have these conversations and to hold that hard line for them. Right? Also, people need to get way better at separating and compartmentalizing. I'll do a video about this at some point, probably on that other channel that's going to be coming soon. You should totally like and subscribe, and make sure you look out for notifications on my Twitter and stuff for when that's coming out, because you guys are going to totally love it. I also want to say super duper hi to Defango. I saw him pop in. I send you hearts. I send you love. I know we don't agree politically. That's okay. It's because I'm Canadian. Just blame it on that. I'm Canadian. I don't understand. But separating out the artists and the art, and a lot of times that gets talked about in one direction. It gets talked about in, hey, if this person is racist and they made something that is very inclusive and is received as very inclusive, and that racism isn't a thing that comes up in this, are you still allowed to like this art? The thing is that people don't tend to talk about, it goes the other way. So if somebody writes a racist character, are they racist for writing that character? Or if they write a story that talks about and expresses racism, the movie The Joker, has some people viewed that movie as glorifying mental illness and saying that people with mental illness are a threat. However, the way I took it was as a cautionary tale of compassion. You should be more compassionate to people who are struggling. And if you're a little bit more compassionate, these horrible things won't happen. I'm more compassionate to Kevin Sorbo than I think a lot of people are. I am also more compassionate to people who are religious than a lot of atheists are, especially on the internet, because I don't view them as bad people. Like Kevin Sorbo described, he believes he is doing what he believes is right. He is telling the truth, and he believes what he is saying is true. And when you have that kind of conviction, part of it, if you can compartmentalize the difference between the idea and that person's passion and conviction, it's going to take you a really long way, right? You can be, you can look at somebody's passion and respect it for what it is, and not respect what they're compassionate about, or no, sorry, what they're passionate about, not compassionate about. If somebody's passionate about the truth of God or the truth of the Bible, and they're very passionate and they care about that a lot, you can respect that. Just as a human to human. But from a standpoint of like, oh, but slavery's okay, or but being gay isn't okay. Like, no, bruh, no. I appreciate your passion, but fuck off. Like, not cool, dude. No, I don't agree with you. And we might be able to talk about that. We might not be able to talk about it. It's, again, we're back to the paradox of tolerance. If you're supposed to be tolerant to everything, you have to be tolerant to intolerance. And as soon as you're intolerant, or as soon as you're tolerant to intolerance, you end up in a situation where the intolerance will take over. Right? And when that intolerance takes over, that's how you get Nazis. Go down all, you take it to the extreme, right? And so it's a situation where you have to balance, what are you tolerant about? What are you intolerant about? And what's your justification for being intolerant? And here's the tricky part, can you express why you're intolerant of that thing? If you're doing what Kevin Sorbo said and you're just saying, well, science, well, that's not, you're not able to express your ideology in a way that other people can understand, right? If you can't do that, then you can't have the conversation. If you can't it's a part of it is about a little bit of extreme acceptance. People are people, so why should it be that you and I should get along so awfully? And then in some cases you get things like Ukraine, where people are dying over stuff. And you get places where, like in Islam, where gay people are being thrown off roofs. And so you need to be a little bit more extreme in your condemnation of what's happening. Right? But don't treat everyone like they're actively doing that thing. Right? It's like, I don't think Kevin Sorbo should be treated like shit, either in Hollywood or in his day-to-day life, or even on Twitter, because he has a crummy, what I believe is a crummy take on something. Right? But it gets a little bit more dangerous when you start talking about, COVID stuff, because people are dying. So yeah, people are going to have a far more visceral reaction to that, as they should. So it's a matter of like, how patient can you be, and can you afford to be that patient? There's a time period where Black people could not afford to be that patient, and that time period might still be now, depending on where you live. Same with gay people, same with trans people, same with women. Not everybody can not everybody can afford to be that patient, because it's a life or death situation for them. And so that's where the other side needs to come to the table, right? And be compassionate the other way. If people want to have the discussion about abortion, then you need to be able to meet each other halfway and start by viewing each other as human beings and talk to each other with the respect of human beings, and understanding that, hey, listen, we both understand that there's a lot of people that are bad actors. We understand that there's a lot of people who are purposefully trying to cause harm. We're both here to come to the table with our points of view and why we believe those things are the best and worst. And then we need to reach a compromise where maybe nobody's going to be happy, but at least it's going to be something that is realistic and will allow us to take baby steps forward. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be huge leaps and bounds. One step at a time. But hey, what do I know? I'm a goblin. I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you, everybody, for coming. This was Dumb Fekk Friday. It was a lot of fun. Kevin Sorbo contradicting himself. I'd love to talk to this man one day. This is fantastic. I'll catch you guys next time. Thank you for super chatting. Thank you for coming to support. Thank you if you're a member. Link to the Discord is in the community tab. Watching Kevin Sorbo's movie. Watch an Egghead video of Kevin Sorbo's movie. They're bad. They're real bad. They're real bad caricatures, which is one of the reasons why people really don't like those. You can take this out and kind of analyze it, but you just take Kevin Sorbo as a whole. He's got some really straw-man-y views on the other side, but I'll see you guys over on Mania's channel. She's about to go stream in, I don't know, maybe an hour or so. I'll see you guys over there. Have a good day, everybody. Bye. I gotta, hold on, I gotta set up this button. I got the wrong thing. There we go. Okay, bye.